Hi, this is Ellen from the Make Room near Bath, and today I'm going to show you how to put in a concealed or invisible zipper. Now we're going to put in a concealed zip or invisible zip, and for this we need a concealed zipper foot, which looks like this. You don't get this with your machine when you buy it; you have to buy it separately. And on the back it has two grooves that each edge of the zip is going to run through. Now I do have another one. These are both universal fitments. It looks quite different on the top, but it does have the two grooves on the bottom. So they don't always look like this, but I find this one works, well, they both work just as well as each other, but I particularly like this one. It clips on really well and feels very sturdy. So to fit it onto your machine, drop the foot off by pressing the button at the back, and there's two bars on this. The back bar is going to sort of slot onto the back of the shank here, and then I'm just going to lower the pressure foot down and it clips onto the front bar. Make sure your cotton's true to the back. And then for the zip, this time, although the seam allowance has been pressed open, the actual opening I haven't pressed anything in, it's just completely flat. I'm going to put my fabric right side up and I'm going to lay my zip right side up. And then I'm going to flick the zip upside down onto that first side opening, and that tells me which side to pin it, if you like. Because a concealed zipper goes in upside down, if you like, when we're pinning it. So you can see I've got it pinned onto the right side, and when it flicks over it will be correct. And I'm going to pin it all the way down to the base of that opening. Now I've got to make sure that where I'm pinning is exactly in line with that opening at the base. That final point there, I want to be in line with that exact opening of the seam. And you can see when that flicks back the other way, it'll be the right way up. So I'm just going to tack that first, and then we machine that side in before we do the other side. Might be a good idea to undo the zip at this point if you can. If the pins are in the way, just take them out to get the zip head out of the way. The other thing is, a concealed zip needs to be about, I'd say about 5 centimetres longer than the opening that you're going to put it into, because we have to be able to move the zip head out of the way for each of these processes. So I'm just going to tack this now to hold it in position while I machine. You can do it with pins when you're more experienced, but there's quite a lot to think about with a concealed zip when you're sewing it in, so it's probably best when you're learning to tack it in first. So basically where it's being tacked in is the seam line, the continuation of the seam line. So whatever your seam allowance is, it will be there. And I'm going to make sure when I get to the base here that it's exactly lining up with the opening, so that the zip is really kind of disappearing into that place. So you can see that there's the base of the opening. I'll show you there. And there's where my stitch ends. So it's really, really close. And now I'm going to machine that side first. So I've got my zipper foot on. Now there's two grooves in the front of the zip foot, one on each side. We need to work out which one we're going to use. You have to roll the teeth back when you put it into that groove, and I want my needle to be to the left side of those teeth. So in order to do that, I need to use the left hand groove. I'm just going to make sure my machine is on its default setting, so needle in the middle, because that's quite important for this. So I'm going to roll the teeth back with my fingers, and then I'm going to put it in that groove. And then I'm going to put my needle down, and my needle is nicely in the zip now. And I'm going to keep those teeth rolled back as it feeds into that groove. Just do a reverse at the top. So I've got my finger on the teeth, because look, they're rolled that way, and then I'm unrolling it, keeping it flat as it feeds in all the way down to the very base. And this time I really want to get and stop when I get to the base of that opening. I don't want to overshoot here, otherwise you'll get a pucker. So stop, even if you have to do a few by hand, just stop short and just make sure you don't overshoot. So that's in. You can take the tacking out. And now I'm going to do the zip up. And you can see that that one side is in, and you can't see any teeth at all. So now we've got to do the other side. Now, the trickiest thing with a concealed zip is not to end up with a little pucker at the bottom. But also, if you've got any lines going across, say this is a yoke and you've got two pieces that you need to line up, that's very important that you don't let that move. So from the right side, I'm going to fold under my seam allowance first and just pin it so I know I've got it correct before I go too far. I've just pinned it under the seam allowance, and then I'm going to line up any things that I need to line up. Well, I'm going to line up that row of stitching because I've put that in as like a dummy yoke. And the other thing is, at the base of the zip here, I don't want this to end up puckering like that. So about 1.5 centimetres above the zip, I'm just going to put a pin with it nice and flush. And they're kind of my anchor pins. The only other anchor pin would be the top of the zip, because you're going to make sure it's flush with the top. Now what I'm going to do is undo the zip. And I'm going to put the head of the zip through that hole in the base there, go through to the other side and pull that zip head right out so that it's nowhere near my zip teeth. Now we've got to machine this in exactly as we did with the other side, so it's no good me having it pinned like that. So what I'm going to do is go to the other side, and where those pins are, I can see them in there. I'm just going to put a pin through just the zip and the seam allowance, just those two layers on where both of those pins are. And once I've got those in, I can take those out, because all they're doing is anchoring the zip where I want it to be, and I don't want it to move when I get to those places. So I'm going to put a cross pin in there to really make sure that that's the two things I don't want to move at all when I'm putting in the zip. The other thing is the head at the end of the zip should be flush with the with your work here, and then anything in between you just have to make sure that you make it fit. I'm just going to pin that, even if you have to ease it in between your anchor pins. You just want to make sure nothing moves really. Put a pin at the base, I'll put one in there, and again we're going to tack that now, but I'm going to leave those anchor pins in for a minute. I can take the other ones out. So at the base here, I'm making sure it disappears into that opening again. Just do a back stitch here to hold it, and then just tack up the side here. Now, I can take these horizontal pins in, but I'm going to leave those vertical ones in. They are my anchor pins. I don't want anything to move, so I'm just leaving them in as like an insurance policy really. so that nothing shunts when I get to them. So this time I've got to go down the other side of the zip, and I'm going to, of the zip foot, and I'm going to roll the teeth back again, slide it into the groove, put my needle down, make sure I'm happy with where I am. Needle in the middle, it works on both sides for this. Do a little reverse at the top, keep that rolled back all the time as you go down. Now there's my anchor pin. When I get to it, I'm going to take it out because nothing's moved. When I get to this one, I'm going to take it, I'm just rolling the teeth back there. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to put my needle down. Now when you get to the base here, again, it's very important that you stop just as you get to that opening, the base of the opening. So have your thumb ready and ready to reverse when you get to that point. Or do a few by hand if you're worried you're going to overshoot. It's best to stop short and do a few by hand. So you can see I've got my teeth coming in at the base here. Here's the bottom of my zip and it's all stitched in. I'm going to take the tacking out again. Now obviously you've got no zip head, so what you've got to do now is put the zip head through the hole. So push it through, so you're sort of working from backwards really, and pull it. And you'll see that it will go through that opening onto the other side. And hopefully we've made sure that everything's lined up as it has. We've got no pucker at the bottom. And as you can see, you don't see any of the zip apart from the little head at the top. And when you press that, it will be perfect. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial today and hopefully see you again soon.